Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me. Thank you for your time. And today's Daf is Shevuot Daf 28 Amud B. So let's dive straight in. In a case where we ate both of them intentionally, so what does that mean? Shetehen b'mezid, both of them intentionally. If one said, on my oath, I will not eat this loaf, if I eat this one, and then he proceeded to eat both of them intentionally, he would be liable to receive lashes regardless of which loaf he ate first. That's from the Raavad. The halacha is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that an uncertain forewarning is deemed a forewarning. Rambam Seif Haflar Hilchet Shevuot 4:17 and the Kesef Mishnah there, C5:2 Shulchan Aruch Yodeh 239:16. If he ate the loaf whose consumption was his condition and then he ate the forbidden loaf, he is liable to receive lashes. If he ate the forbidden loaf and then ate the loaf whose consumption was his condition, his liability is the subject of a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. According to one who says that an uncertain forewarning is deemed a valid forewarning, he is liable to receive lashes. According to one who says that an uncertain forewarning is not deemed a valid forewarning, he is exempt. Since when he was forewarned for eating the forbidden loaf, he was certain whether it... let's do that again. Since he was forewarned for eating the forbidden loaf, it was uncertain whether he would actually become forbidden. That forewarning is not sufficient to be liable to receive lashes. If one took an oath with regard to two loaves, such that he rendered them interdependent, this one on that one saying, Tala'an zo bezo, independent this on that one. If one took an oath saying, on my oath I will not eat one of these loaves, if I eat the other, it is prohibited for him to eat either one, lest he eat the other. The Rambam rules that he forgot the condition and ate one of the loaves, and then he ate the other loaf intentionally, he is liable, in accordance with the textual variation of Rabbi Hananel. The Raavad says that based on the standard version of the text he is exempt. The Shulchan Aruch rules that if he ate one loaf without recalling his oath, it is permitted for him to eat the second, in accordance with the interpretation of Rashi, the Be'or Hagor. Other authorities hold that it is prohibited. That's in the Rosh Nabah. The Rambam rules that if he ate the first loaf intentionally and the second loaf unwittingly, he is exempt in accordance with the opinions and the version of the text of Rabbi Hananel and the Reb Migash. The Shulchan Aruch rules that it is prohibited for him to eat the second loaf, in keeping with the standard text which states that one is liable in that case. If he ate them both intentionally, he is liable, and that's in the Rambam Seif Haflar Shevuot 4:19 Shulchan Aruch Yodeh 239:17. If I will not eat that if I eat this, and I will not eat this if I eat that, and he ate this one intentionally with regard to itself, i.e. at the time he ate it he was aware that he had taken an oath that would render it forbidden if he ate the other, but unwittingly with regard to the other. Bizon asma uv shigas chaverta. Rashi explains that before he ate it, he was aware that he took an oath to render this loaf forbidden if he eats the other loaf, but did not remember that in eating this loaf he fulfills the condition rendering the other loaf forbidden. Under these circumstances, his consumption of the first loaf is entirely permitted. When he eats the second loaf, the first loaf is retroactively prohibited, but he does not become liable to bring an offering, since when he ate the first loaf, he was unwitting only with regard to the condition, and one does not bring an offering for an intentional transgression. He is also not liable to receive lashes for eating the second loaf, since he did not fulfill the condition put into effect by his eating the first loaf intentionally, rendering the oath accidental. Rabbeinu Tam and the Ramban explains that he is not liable to bring an offering for the first loaf he ate, because when he eats the second loaf he is intentionally violating an oath, and therefore he is not deemed one who would have withdrawn from sinning due to his knowledge. See 26b. As at the time of consumption the first loaf was permitted, so he would not have withdrawn from eating it. This is despite the fact that the second loaf is not forbidden to him, as when he ate the first loaf he did not remember the condition, and so the oath did not take effect. The Baal HaMa'or understands this phrase intentionally with regard to itself to mean that when he ate the first loaf he had forgotten the condition and thought that he had taken an unconditional oath prohibiting the first loaf. Since he ate it under a misconception, his eating is not considered an intentional violation. Since the eating of the first loaf was not an intentional violation, it also does not serve to fulfill the condition that renders the second prohibited. As in the previous case, Rabbi Hananel had a version of the text that said the opposite. When one eats each loaf intensely with regard to itself, but unwittingly with regard to the other, he is liable. Rabbi Migash explains that the person ate each one with the awareness that it was forbidden, and he is liable to receive lashes for eating it, despite the fact that he did not remember that each prohibition was conditional. Even though eating the first loaf was permitted, it became forbidden retroactively when he ate the second. The forewarning given by witnesses before he ate the first loaf should not be regarded as an uncertain forewarning, as the witnesses did not know about the condition either, and was simply forewarning him not to violate his oath, which he then did, even if his violation was retroactive. I.e., he did not remember that in eating it, he rendered the second one forbidden, and then he ate that one intentionally with regard to itself, but unwittingly with regard to the other. He is exempt, as both conditions were fulfilled only unintentionally. If he ate this one unwittingly with regard to itself, having forgotten that it would be forbidden if he ate the other, but intentionally with regard to the other, this is a case where one forgot that he had taken an oath rendering it prohibited for him to eat a particular loaf were he to eat a different one. But he remembered that by eating the first one, the other one would become forbidden afterward. While eating the second loaf, he recalled that he had taken an oath rendering the first loaf forbidden, were he to eat the second, but he forgot that the second loaf, which he was in the middle of eating, became forbidden when he ate the first. In this instance, Rashi explains, in keeping with the overall understanding, that one is liable to bring an offering only for eating the second loaf, because at the time he ate the first loaf, he knew that he was thereby causing the second one to become forbidden. He is not liable to bring an offering for eating the first loaf, since at the time of his consumption it was not prohibited. Rabbeinu Tam also holds that one cannot become retroactively liable to bring an offering. See the Ramban and the Baal Hamor. Some commentaries object to this interpretation, since Rava does not distinguish between the first and the second loaves in this case, indicating one is liable for eating each loaf. These commentaries explain that the oath takes effect upon the consumption of the loaf, whose consumption is a condition, provided that he is aware of the condition when he eats it, i.e. he eats it intensely with regard to the other loaf. The loaf takes effect on the other loaf and is liable even retroactively. Such was Tavush in the Vitva. He is therefore liable in this case for eating both loaves. Rabbi Hananel's version of the text in this case is that the person is exempt. Since he did not fulfill either condition intentionally, the oaths are accidental and do not take effect. Understanding that with his action he rendered the other forbidden, and that one unwittingly with regard to itself, but intentionally with regard to the other, he is liable to bring offerings for unwittingly breaking his oath, as the conditions were fulfilled intentionally and the oath took effect. If he ate both of them unwittingly, he is exempt, as both conditions were fulfilled only unintentionally. If he ate both of them intentionally, he is liable to receive lashes for eating the second loaf. Well, for the first loaf, his status depends on the dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish with regard to an uncertain warning. Rav Mari said, we learn in the Mishnah, in the Dom 20b, as well as that if one takes an oath with a condition but then fulfills the condition only unwittingly, he is exempt. The sages dissolved 4 types of vows. Arba'a, Nadarim, Hitiru, V'chulu. These are vows that do not require dissolution. Vows of exhortation, vows of exaggeration, unwitting vows, and vows whose fulfillment is impeded by circumstances beyond one's control. And that's in the Rambam Sefer Torah, Hilchot Nadarim 4:1-3, Shulchan Aruch Yodea 232:1. Without the requirement of a request to a halachic authority, vows of exhortation, vows of exaggeration, unwitting vows, and vows whose fulfillment is impeded by circumstances beyond one's control. The Mishnah elaborates it in Adam 25b. Unwitting vows, how so? Nidrei shegagos kesad. What are examples of unwitting vows? If one said a certain item is konam to me if I ate and drank today, and then he recalled that he had eaten and drunk, or if he said a certain item is konam to me if I will eat or drink, and then he forgot and ate or drank, since he took the vow or fulfilled the condition unwittingly, it is not a vow. And that's from the Shulchan Aruch Yodea 232:6. And if one says I ate a certain item forbidden to me, like an offering konam, if I ate or if I drank, and then he remembers that he ate or drank, if one says this loaf is konam for me, if I will eat or if I will drink, and then he forgets and eats or drinks, the item is permitted. And it is taught in a Braita with regard to that Mishnah. Just as unwitting vows, Tosfot note that the halacha that conditional oath and vows are take effect only if one fulfills the condition intentionally is derived from the verse about oath. They ask, given that fact, why the Gemara states here that oaths are similar to vows, it should state instead that vows are similar to oath. They explain that although the source is a verse about oath, the Mishnah states this halacha explicitly only about vows, and the Brisa is merely pointing out that it extends to oaths as well. Are dissolved, so are unwitting oaths dissolved, since he fulfilled the condition while lacking awareness that he was doing so. The Gemara clarifies, what are the circumstances of unwitting oaths? Nidre Shagagosh Kesa. What are examples of let's read that one. Unwitting oath. I've already read that. It is a case not like this, where he takes an oath with a condition and then fulfills the condition of an oath unwittingly. Conclude from that Mishnah there is a support for Rabba's opinion. It is related that the sage Eifa learned instructed Shevuot in the academy of Rabbah. His brother Avimi met him and tested him concerning the halakha of oaths. Avimi said to him, if one says, on my oath I did not eat, and then again on my oath I did not eat. Oh, it's down here. Unwitting oaths. Just as unwitting oaths do not take effect, so too unwitting oaths do not take effect. Just as unwitting vows do not take effect, so too unwitting oaths do not take effect. Therefore, if one takes an oath that he will not eat a particular loaf, if he eats a second one, and then forgets and eats a second loaf, the oath does not take effect. The ruling is according to the opinion of a Meimah, and that's from the Ba'or HaKorah. The Rambam appears to hold that there is nevertheless a prohibition of eating the loaf as the object of his oath. Rambam says, Shevuot 3:5, Shulchan Yodeh 239 1:17. Shevuot shelo achalti. On my oath I did not eat. On my oath I did not eat. If one who has eaten says, on my oath I did not eat, and then he says again, on my oath I did not eat, he is liable for both oaths. The principle that one oath does not take effect where another oath is already in place does not apply to oath about the past. And that's from the Shulchan Yodeh 238:22. See the Shach there. What is halacha? Eifa said to him, he is liable only once if he ate. Avimi said to him, you have confused the issue. Since the oath about the past, it's not a question of whether the second oath takes effect. Each time a false oath was issued, and each was a separate transgression. Avimi asked him further, if one said, on my oath I will not eat 9 pieces, and on my oath I will not eat 10, if one took an oath not to eat 9 items, and then he took an oath not to eat 10, the second oath does not go into effect. This ruling is according to the opinion of Avimi. Rambam Sefer Shevuot 4:12, Shulchan Yodeh 238:12. What is halacha? Eifa replied, he is liable for each and every one of the oaths, as the scope of the second oath is broader than that of the first. Avimi said to him, you have confused the issue. If he may not eat 9, he may not eat 10. The oath not to eat 10 cannot take effect, since it is an action already prohibited by the oath not to eat 9. Avimi asked him further, if one said, on my oath I will not eat 10, and on my oath I will not eat 9, if one said, on my oath I will not eat 10 items, and then he said, on my oath I will not eat 9, both oaths take effect. If he eats 9, he'll be in violation of this second oath, and if he eats a 10th item, he'll be in violation of the first oath as well. The Ran comments that this is the halacha when the oath does not specify the particular items it is referring to. If the items are specified, then the first oath renders it prohibited for him to eat any of them, and the second oath does not take effect. Rambam Sefer Shevuot 4:13, Shulchan Yodeh 238:13. What is halacha? Eifa replied, he is liable for only one oath. Avimi said to him, you have confused the issue. According to the first oath, it is 10 that he may not eat, but he may still eat 9. So the second oath takes effect in that it prohibits him from eating 9. Abai said, there are times when you find the ruling of Eifa with regard to an oath not to eat 10, followed by an oath not to eat 9 applies, as in a case mentioned by the master. As Rabbah says, in the case of one who says, on my oath I will not eat figs and grapes together, and then says, on my oath I will not eat figs, and he unwittingly ate figs, and set aside for breaking the second oath, and afterward he unwittingly ate grapes alone, he is exempt from liability for breaking the first oath. So we'll move on to the next Omud. I'm just going to read that footnote. If he ate figs, etc. If one took an oath and that he will not eat figs, and then takes another oath that he will not eat figs and grapes together, and he unwittingly ate figs and set aside an offering for violating his oath, and then unwittingly ate grapes, he is not liable for eating the grapes. The grapes are like a half measure of his second oath. And one does not bring an offering when one consumes only a half measure. This ruling follows the opinion of Rabbah, which is in accordance with the Rabbeinu Hanani's version of the text, and Rabbah Sefer Florech, Shevuot 4:14, Shulchan Aruch Yodea 236. Thank you for listening and have a good day. Bye.